You ended it, but it was okay, so that's good. Give people a couple more minutes to pop in, and then we will get started. Hi, Diane.
Nope, she's muted.
I saw her waving.
Hello, everybody. How you doing this evening?
Good.
Good.
So while we're waiting on some more people, I see we got some new faces. So I want to go around and just get people to say their name, where they're from, how they heard about us, and then hopefully by then some more people will join us and we can get going. So start anywhere you want. Not all
Hi.
at once, though. Not
Hi,
all
my
at
name is Diane Thompson. I'm from Trinity Church in Chicago. And I heard about the program through Secure Church some years back when she was with them. And I went to the in-person training a few weeks ago. It was excellent. Out in Hoffman Estates, I believe that's where I was at. Yes.
Yes.
Great job.
Thank you.
I'm Mary Barr, and I've heard about Toolkit Tuesday for a while, but I've never made it. So tonight's my first night. And I did also enjoy the seminar that we were at out at the Salvation Army headquarters very much.
Good. Anybody else?
So I'm Joe Basala.
I heard about Toolkit.
Okay, hold on. We had a couple things happen at the same time.
Whoop.
One, I want to go back to Mary. What church are you from?
I heard the
I'm from Village Point.
Village Point. Okay, go. So then, Joe, you're next. Go.
Yeah, from Davenport, Iowa, Christ Family Church, and really heard it from our security team leader. So passed on a link.
Very good. Thanks. John, you were speaking next.
yes.
John, I think you're freezing.
Point as well.
John, I think you're freezing a little
Can you hear me?
bit. Try again.
Can you hear me?
Now I can, yes.
Village Point Church. Heard about Tuesday Toolkit from Gary Forcier. And unfortunately, my small group meets Tuesday nights, so this is the first opportunity.
Oh, yeah, we don't ever want to take you from small group, but we're glad you could join us tonight.
Absolutely.
Who wants to go next?
I'll go.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Donna. I'm from Parkview Christian Church in Orland Park, Illinois.
All right. How'd you hear about us?
Through Church Secure.
Okay. Very good. Who wants to go next? All right, so I'm gonna call people so I see you on my screen. So I got the other Mary that just says Mary's iPhone.
Gary Forcier, also from Village Point.
Hey, Gary.
Hi, Angelia.
I have a Mary that says Mary's iPhone. Mary, can you hear us? You got the cute puppy walking around your fireplace. All right, I'll come back to Mary. What about Keith?
Good evening, everybody. Keith Williams from Trinity United Church of Christ. I also was connected through Secure Church, but my dear friend Diane Thompson reminded me of tonight. Good to see you.
Diane's good at that. So thank you, Diane. Thanks for joining us, Keith. Steve?
Steve Warnemont, also from Village Point Church. Originally went to Secure Church, and then our security team, our safety team leader, got us connected with these Toolkit Tuesdays.
Very good. I see one of our other board members is here. Raynice, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Raynice Edwards. I am on the board, and I'm with the Church Without Walls in Houston, Texas.
All right. I think I got Angelo. Is that right?
Yes. And we're Trinity United Church of Christ in Chicago.
Okay, thanks for being here. I see Diane's doing her work over there. And I'm gonna assume that's Mary A from Village Point up on the top. I can't, I think she didn't hear us and open up.
It is.
It is, okay, good. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Anybody want to open us up in prayer? Yes? No? All right,
Gracious Father God, Mother God, we come humbly and openly. God, we come asking that you continue to bless us and anoint us. Empower us, God, that we can not only say a prayer, but be a prayer, God. And we thank you for this gathering. We thank you for the information and knowledge that you will share, that we can broaden our perspective, that we can be a true servant that you've called us to be. And God, we thank you as we humble ourselves and open our hearts, that we can do all that you've called us to be now, that we can say, a job well done, my good and faithful servant. And thank you for all that we get and all that we do. To God be the glory. We say amen.
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 so good to see everybody again. We're gonna talk about a couple things. So for the newbies that are here, it is very casual. We like to learn from each other. I said when I first came on, and a couple of you popped in after that, I've owned a small business for a lot of years. And I went out to Dartmouth one year to executive training, and all the big wig professors came in and told us all this heady information. It was great. But all the information that I learned that was practical that I could use in my business came from the other business owners in the class. So if you have things that you're doing at your church that serves another church, hey, we're doing this and this maybe can serve somebody else, feel free to jump in and share that, okay, as we're talking. So I know Joe said he was having dinner, so that's fine. For those of you without your cameras, if at some point you can turn them on, that's great. The whole objective of Toolkit Tuesday is to build community. And so I would like us all to see each other if that's possible. So I want to talk about the event a couple weeks ago. We all got this lovely binder. Has anybody used it? It's not collecting dust on your shelf, is it? What's happening? What have you done since 2 weeks ago? Those of you that attended, tell me what you've done with it.
Well, I just found out that the electronic version is on the webpage. I thought it was going to be emailed to us, so we were kind of waiting for that, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel and just fill out everything. So it's on the web. It's on your website under the members section. I understand.
Denise, that's correct. I have to ask Denise these things, Gary.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, very good. So yeah, if you want to go on if you haven't been on our page and went on the members section, it's totally free. You just have to go in there and tell us who you are. It'll ask you for your email address, which will put you on our mailing list, and all the things there are for download. The objective is for us to provide the best content possible to churches at no cost. So any of the videos that are on there, any of the safety moments that are on there, you can take them down, you can email them to people, you can put them in your newsletters. We're going to start working on some fresh content in the fall. If you guys have content ideas, I'll take those. Like, oh, you should make a video about, tell me. If anybody wants to start a video with me, let me know. I'd like to have more voices than mine. So people pull it up. Hey, I'm Gary and I'm from Village Point and this is what we're doing. So yeah, so let me know. I'll bring my videographer to you if you want to be in a video. So I'd be happy to do that. So yes, all of the data is there. I hope you guys pull it down and actually start using it, walking through it. Anybody that was there have any feedback from us? I'd like to hear, yeah, you thought it was great content, but is there anything else we should include in terms of topics? We're already into planning for next year. We walked away from that event and had one of the pastors call us right away and said, I'm the head of a consortium of pastors and I got 50 people I need you to train. So we're already like into the next cycle of what we're going to train. And so we're already thinking about what we're going to do for next year. So if you have topics that you think, hey, this would be great if you include it, let us know. I'd be happy to hear from you tonight or email us. That would be great. So other than you enjoyed it, any particular feedback you want to share with us? And I think you're going to get a survey too, but anything in particular stick out if you were at the event?
The crisis takeaway, grab bag. I want to talk about that a little bit more because I need to have the Emma Bossy, our healthcare team, whether that bag is in existence. That's two different ministries, kind of. The paid staff, where the bag will be located, of course, and then the nursing component of the church needs to know where that bag is also, and what's in the bag, and kind of verify what's usable, that they know how to use at least, and that needs to be done.
Talking about the go bag for medical, or are you talking about the reunification kit?
The go bag for medical. For medical.
So what's the question?
We need to put together the medical people, a different team at the church to know about that particular bag.
Okay.
And then reunification, I need two. I need to have two bags, looks like. Yeah.
Yeah. And you have that checklist of what goes in it, right?
Yes, I do. The one for I've only did the crisis for the medical part.
Okay.
You can find the page and do the one for the reunification part too.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, for the one, my office is a mess, so I'm not going to move too much because I don't want you to see all my junk. I have my bag. It's sitting underneath my desk. So for us, some of our security team carries some of those things in a bag. They have like a
really?
A crossbody bag. Particularly some of the things that are like the chest wound pieces, the blood clotting agents, like they have that stuff on them. And then we have a medic team. So the medic team has their own go bag where they have everything in it, from a blood pressure cuff to all of this other stuff. And then me, in terms of being crisis management, I had a go bag. And then also you can also add any of those things from the go bag in a separate bag in that kit, in that reunification kit. So if you have to relocate off site, you make sure it goes with it. But yeah, somebody needs to own the process of, if we have an emergency, where is the bag and who's going to get the bag?
And so they have a medical kit in the room where someone gets taken to the room, for calling the 911, that kind of stuff. Yeah, but okay.
Yeah, but a portable one is good, especially a church your size.
Yes.
That, if you got multiple things happening, somebody can take the bag and go there. Somebody can take the bag and go there, and they can go to the room. Like, you got options.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anybody else? Things that stood out from being there.
The last person who spoke, the district school, somebody.
Yeah, Adam Dean is the Director of Safety and Security for the Huntley School District.
Thank you very much. So you had a table of just so many things. I wanted to go and open them all up and see what they were and try them. So that would have helped me to say, can I use this at church? You know what I'm saying? As opposed to just a school situation. And is it safe? Is it security? I think that was a great topic you did, discussing whether it's going to be safe, the difference between safety and security. Big difference. That's important.
Yeah, it is a big difference, and people don't realize that, but they have to be hand in hand, right?
Yes.
So what I'm trying to do in our endeavors is make sure people understand that security has a role, and they don't need to get drug into all the other, operational things that are happening, which I see a lot, particularly at smaller churches. Like, oh, security guard Bob, we're out of coffee, oh, I'll get it for you, right? But they're not focused then on what they need to be focused on. And so how do we help be the eyes and ears of the security team? There's more greeters, there's more parking lot people than there are security people. So how do we do that? And then how do we communicate to them effectively to keep them on task, right? So in the security training that happens, they talk about things like PEA in terms of aisles, exits, pastoral coverage, right? So They need to be focused on that as opposed to, so if we see something at the front door and there's not a security person there, how do we identify it? And then how do we communicate it to them? If we see something in the parking lot. So it's just getting people to be focused on, this is a potential hazard. How do I assess it? One, and then how do I communicate it? Right? So in terms of what's in that big kit that you're talking about, I don't have one of those here. But all the things that are in there are not just for school. It's for reunification. So remember when we talked about mutual aid partners? So you should look for mutual aid partners that have an opposite schedule as you. So in other words, you don't want to go someplace if you need to reunify or evacuate your campus that also has Sunday operations. If your church operates on a Sunday, you need something that's closed on a Sunday.
Mhm.
So think park districts, because they just typically have a lot of room, even if they're having programs, they probably still have much more capacity, even on a Sunday. Think about school districts, because schools are closed on the weekend, right? So you
Yes.
take all your kids and get them moved to a space for reunification. Where do the parents go? Where do the kids go? So the things that are in there are for reunification. It's not specific to schools or churches or hospitals or anything. It's not specific to that. And so he had things like, you know, the red color flags
Thanks. Yeah.
and the armbands, right? So the
Yeah.
parents are getting armbands, and you can decide what those colors mean. He has some structure for what his mean based on grade. For you, if you have children's ministry, it could be all parents with infants to first grade have a green band. All parents of, you know, first grade to third grade have a red band. Whatever your system, you have to build your system. All we're providing is framework, right? Here's a
Right.
framework, and then you got to build it for your specific interest. The biggest thing that I think he talked about, but the one that has stuck with me since Denise and I walked down the school initially, Connie's on too. She doesn't have her camera on yet. She's on our board. And we went through a drill of what it would look like. The biggest thing that stuck out to me is if you ever need to do, hey, you're having dinner too, you and Joe should be together. Joe's having dinner. So so the biggest thing that stuck in my head and stayed with me is that parents should be as far away as possible than the kids. And I didn't get to sit in with Adam, but that was the biggest takeaway for me when we walked through that process. Because I don't care how old your kids are, your innate reaction is to go get your kid or to go get rejoined with your kid. My son is 31. If he was in a place and I was in a place and there's an emergency, a bomb threat, a shooting, whatever, I'm going to attempt to go get my kid, right? That's just parental nature. And so they put them as far away as possible so that the parent who sees their kid doesn't run and get their kid. Because what you potentially have, if you've had an active shooter scenario, is a parent sitting right next to them who's not getting their kid. And so you make the reunification place somewhere in the middle. So somebody's responsible for walking to get Sally, the mom, and somebody's responsible for going to get little Robbie and meeting in the middle, okay? And then taking that exit out that door, so you're not even walking them past the parent who's getting hard news. That makes sense?
Yes.
It gets really granular once you like start digging a little deeper. There's lots of pieces. So all things that we can discuss. If that's something you guys want to blow out a little more, send it to us. Like I said, looking for topics, working on next year's, and we'll talk about it throughout the year, but we're working on the big topics, big rocks. Anything else stick out? So if you don't have that kit list, Diane, I can send you that. We can put it up for everybody.
Great.
If you
Thank
don't know what all the things in the kit do, then just ask me. Because there are lots of things in there.
you.
Right?
Lots of things in that kit. Yes.
Yes. Anything else stick out to anybody? So those of you that were not in attendance, again, all of these documents that they received a binder that looks like this, and it was all printed out for them, and it had all this information in it. All this is on the website. If you want to go under the member section, you can download it and start building your templates. Okay.
Mhm.
So one of the things that came up during the event was about de-escalation. So de-escalation has typically been used as a security methodology, essentially. But again, our focus is parking lot folks, greeters, ushers, connectors, production people. Production people, why? Because if you get protesters, hecklers in your worship center, what are they to do? We talked about that. And also children's ministry. I'm always want us to keep top of mind the vulnerable populations first, which is always our elderly, our children, are differently abled. Where do they go? How do they get rescued if it's fire? How do they get out of the building if it's, how do we get them to storm locations? All of those things. Particularly if you're dealing with apparatuses like wheelchairs and things like that. So we're gonna watch 2 short videos. The first one talks about just verbal de-escalation, kind of in general, like some tips about it. And then the second one is about verbal judo specifically. And so then we'll talk through some of that, okay? So let me see if I can figure out, share my screen. And so jot down your questions, and then we'll come back to that. So this one, I think that's right. You guys see the YouTube screen?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna start this one. This one is 9 de-escalation skills. We'll wrap this one up and then we'll do the actual verbal judo piece and talk through that, okay?
This video will cover 9 de-escalation skills for dealing with patrons. Please review these skills periodically in order to incorporate them into your daily behaviors and your approach to dealing with patrons. Meet Grammarly Go, your go-to solution for getting quality work done quickly.
Forcing me to watch it, baby.
Be empathetic and non-judgmental. This is part of our customer service. Try to understand their feelings. Remember that whatever a patron is dealing with, the problem is important to them. For example, you might say, "Thank you for your patience while we sort this out." Or, "I'm sorry you're having a bad experience at the library." Respect personal space. Allowing personal space can decrease a person's anxiety and provide staff with a little safety buffer. Allow at least 3 feet distance. Provide confidential space by stepping away from busy service points, and try to avoid enclosed spaces like offices. Use non-threatening body language. Body language communicates more than words in the best of circumstances. If a person is upset, they hear your words less. Keep your gestures, facial expressions, movements, and tone of voice calm. Stand to the side rather than facing the patron. It's less confrontational and allows you to sidestep away more easily. Do not touch patrons and never shake or point your finger. If a patron is using a loud voice, lower yours rather than attempting to shout over them. It might not be appropriate to smile. If someone's upset, they may feel that you're not taking them seriously. Be professional and rational. Remain calm. You can't control the patron's behavior. You can control your own. If you are calm, professional, empathetic, and are taking the problem seriously, their need to escalate can be reduced. Focus on feelings. Right now, how the patron is feeling is more important than the facts. Listen and watch their body language carefully. Empathetic and supportive comments can be helpful, like, "It sounds like you are frustrated." Ignore challenging questions. Don't argue. Avoid a power struggle. Don't get drawn into "you librarians always do this to me" kinds of accusations. Focus on listening to allow the patron to calm down and allow you time to think of a resolution to the situation. Set limits. If a patron's behavior is belligerent, defensive, or disruptive, give them clear, simple, and enforceable limits. Offer concise and respectful choices and consequences. Remember, the code of conduct exists for all. Choose wisely what you insist upon. Many of the library's policies are negotiable. Offer the patron options that might serve them better. There are no absolutes. Our goal is to maintain a welcoming atmosphere for all our patrons. If the patron you are assisting is negatively impacting other patrons' enjoyment of the library, for example, they're yelling profanity and do not respond to your requests to stop, you can and should ask them to change their behavior or leave for the day. Allow for time and silence. Give the patron the opportunity to reflect on what's happening and how they need to proceed. It's okay to do that 10 count in your head and allow the patron time to calm and focus on the situation. Remember, our goal is to find the balance that provides a safe, pleasant environment to all our library users. Please continue to the next portion of this training.
Okay, so this one talks about being in the library and what that means. Anything in those 9 tips stand out to anybody? If you take those and apply them to your church, what does that mean?
I think we should add another one.
Okay,
And that should always be to extend grace.
absolutely. Yeah.
No matter the situation, always extend grace.
Yeah, I tell people that no matter what we think through, as we think through all these tactical, practical things, we're still a church.
Mhm.
Still a church, which is the hospital for the emotionally sick. They
Mhm.
need to be there. But there's times where we get people in who are dealing with mental health issues or a mental health crisis or other challenges that causes them to be either disruptive, or you got people who are just plain out, we're in a broken world, just plain out coming to church to be disruptive. So let's not discount that. It happens. But there's also people who are having medical or mental crisis. So extending grace should always, always be at the top of our list. And being empathetic should always, always be at the top of our list. And two things can be true at the same time. Holding that intention with, we have a congregation to protect, right?
Yeah.
Volunteers to protect, right? So we got the bride of Christ to protect, right? So we got this person who we got to love on, be empathetic, be the church for. I always say it's particularly greeters, stay in your loving posture. Keep being who you are. And this is where communicating with security becomes important. I want you to stay engaged with that person who's escalated and do your best to de-escalate the situation while having a security person come over and take a peek, right? So we do something called OAA, which is observe, assess, act. And so what are you observing? That behavior. So if somebody's coming to do something that is, purposefully disruptive, and you're trying to engage them. So if you are a greeter, you're in your front lobby, I want you to try to engage them. Good morning. Welcome to ABC Church. What brings you here today? Like, I'm trying to get you to get them to talk to you. If they're looking through you, if they look like they're on a mission, if they're walking past you, that's time to say to the security team, hey, can you take a look? This guy seems a little bit, The other thing I say all the time is please don't ever, ever discount your gut feeling. How many times have you watched the news after a tragedy and somebody says, I saw that guy. He made me feel weird when he was by. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. That gut check thing is the spirit. If something is weird, you got to say, will you take a look? Security teams would rather get 100 wrong calls that you made than one right call that you did not make. And so you want to always go at it from a point of, hey, I have somebody here, step away, obviously, from the person. We talk about observe, assess, act. There's a video about it. What are you observing? How do you assess? Always two people together, preferably one with a radio that can step away and then alert security to come over. Okay. And then ACT is moving to do that. A couple things I wanted to talk about is personal space. You have no idea when people come through the front door what they're dealing with. I'll tell you my personal story. I got divorced. I'm the daughter of a pastor and the daughter-in-law of a pastor. So I've been doing church my whole life, like born into it, married into it. I don't know anything but church. Okay. And got divorced, and we had a small child. My ex-husband's father was our pastor. So essentially that's their church, right? So my son and I are the ones who are going to leave. So we're looking for a church, My son wanted to go to Willow Creek. It was huge, as you know, and I was like, not interested in a huge church, but he knows that he's 9 years old. There's a basketball court there, Mom. There's a food court there, Mom. Right? So he wants to go there. So in my mind, I go, let's just take him there and then we'll be done with that. And then we'll go find another church. Got to Willow, stayed at Willow. Loved Willow. But what I was not interested in was church. I was only interested in Jesus. I was not interested in the function of church. So I went all the way to the balcony in the corner, section 309. I still remember my seat. I had zero interest in talking to people. I was healing from a divorce. I was managing being a newly single mom. We had just moved to a new house. I didn't want it. So you have to, if you're in a greeter position or if you're in a role that trains greeters, get people to read people. Maybe not. I didn't. I wanted to be left alone and I wanted to take in the word of God. That's all I wanted. I wanted to be anonymous. I wanted to come and I wanted to go. And so everybody's not up for a hug. Everybody's not up to get, we get really zealous at church and we all love Jesus and we all want to give everybody a hug. You gotta respect personal space. That's a really big deal, particularly if somebody's triggered, particularly if somebody's already escalated. Oh, come in, maybe you just need a hug. It's not what you want to do. So you want to define personal space for people. Non-threatening body language. They even talked about smiling in that video. Did anybody pick that up?
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lady that I know who had a permanent smile plastered on her face all the time. And people felt sometimes that was disrespectful. Like, you're really not hearing me or feeling my pain. I need you not to be as jovial in this moment. So those are all things. If people are escalated and you're trying to de-escalate, those are things to read for and to pay attention to. They talked about being professional, being calm. Calm works in every situation. It seems counterintuitive when you're in an emergency to slow down, but it really is your best defense is to slow down, calm yourself, calm that person. Again, we're what? Spiritual beings having a human experience. So if you're all rattled, that person feels that. So the more you can calm yourself, you can also calm them. It's kind of how you feel about kids. If you get all revved up before bedtime, right, they're going to be that way too. If you calm yourself down and float them down and get a good bedtime story and sing a little lullaby, they'll come down, go sleep, right? So if somebody is really escalated, your best weapon is calm. So if you can master that. They talked about setting limits and allowing time, all good things. Anything else stick out to anybody about this particular video?
The distance of 3 feet. It used to be, I think, 5, but they said at least keep yourself 3 feet from the person and to always stand sideways too. They talked about that as opposed to face sideways.
Yeah, because that's non-threatening, right? You're not looking as if you're directly coming at them. You're off to the side and having a conversation. It's non-threatening body language.
The other thing that standing to the side allows for them and or you to have an escape route if you need to get away quickly or if they need to get away.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to just mention, this is talking about de-escalation as it relates to somebody being really frustrated. We have another gentleman at our church who is special needs, and he paces. And the security team knows he paces, and the greeter team knows he paces, but it's important to know because there's times when he gets agitated. You'll see him and he's doing all this. But if you don't know him and you don't know what triggers him and you don't know how to approach him, he's still escalated even if he's nonverbal, right? And so you still have to apply all those things when you're dealing with people who are dealing with other issues, right?
I would like to share that, it was a phenomenal video, but sometimes too, my experience is that there's some who want prayer, who need prayer. And so who just need to know, particularly if they've in a church, the security people that can pray with them. And we go by that because we look all around everything else, but not looking at it. You may be able to use that as a means. Simple prayer.
Let me ask you, do you use it? Do you offer it or do you ask them, can you pray for them?
I tried to look at all of the 9 points that the slide talked about. And after looking at that, you want to just offer it and to see if there's a willingness to receive something, and to sometimes to make sure that as we have secure all the things you said in place, it's also good sometimes to have a deacon in place or minister in place. Outside of you may be a calling you need to.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I agree with that, and I feel like security is a ministry. It's not like just a group of people running around. It is a ministry. So the people who are on security teams should be vetted as much as people who are greeting at the door, that they should be able to stop with that person and have a moment to say, can I pray with you? Like, I feel like we should just stop and, have prayer right now. So absolutely. Again, all these are practical tools and framework. I never want us to forget that we're a church. We are a church first. Like, before anything else, it is our job to be the church, right? And so absolutely, I think that security is a ministry, and my prayer is that more security teams see it as a ministry. They are walking alongside people, and people who are standing in those lobbies or standing in those parking lots feel like they can bring people to the security person to say, this gentleman needs to have a conversation with you, and maybe a word of prayer. Like, I don't think, in my experience, and I go around, visit a lot of churches, I don't often think that people think to bring them to a security person. They think to take them to a deacon or a prayer partner person or somebody on pastoral call, but absolutely security is a ministry. Absolutely. Anything else stick out to anybody on that one?
It just kind of reminded me that the 9 steps kind of reminded me of the 6-step ladder for aggression. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that.
I've seen
the 6-step ladder.
But go ahead. You can tell us
Okay.
what.
So the first one is calm. The second one is verbal anxiety. 20% of our population is verbally anxious.
Tell
Tell
people what you mean by that.
So if you're in a grocery store, you just hear people. They're like, oh, I can't wait any longer. How long is this cashier going to take? They're being verbally anxious because they're voicing their anxiety. The cashier is taking too long. Oh no, now we got to do a price check. And that's somebody who's verbally anxious. Then there's verbally hostile. So now their body language is changing. They're fidgeting. They're messing with things in their carts. So they're starting to get hostile. Then verbally aggression is where they verbalize, oh, I'm going to hit her. If she doesn't hurry up, I'm going to punch someone. So now they're getting verbally aggressive. Then there's physical aggression. So now they're like ramming their carts, into the conveyor belt, or, they're starting to knock things over. And then this last one is physical assault. So they were saying that you can go from verbally anxious to physical assault within a matter of seconds. So as a ministry of either safety or security, you have to know that in the back of your mind.
Right. Yeah.
And somebody,
right.
and you'll see that in somebody who you're speaking with, if they're getting verbally anxious or they're getting hostile, they're starting to get aggressive, like now their voice is raising. So,
right.
You know, that's when you kind of want to also not deflect, but reflect on things that they're saying. You know, if they're saying, you know, I'm really having a bad day. Well, why don't you tell me, how are you having a bad day? What's going on?
Right.
So I think if people know that.
At what point then do you say, okay, I have to move this to have the security team come take a look?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. When if they start becoming verbally hostile, that's when you.
But knowing that can happen.
Yeah. Quickly. Yeah.
What do you say? Okay, I probably should get somebody over here to take a peek.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, you can always say, hey, you know what, I'm going to have John come over and talk to you. And that's like maybe your security guy.
Right.
You know, and you can always say, you know, John's real good at this, or, you know, John's been through the same situation.
Mm-hmm.
So at least they feel like they have an ally.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and then they're more apt to open up to really what's going on. The situation is going on.
Anybody have a situation where they've had to de-escalate somebody?
No, we've been fortunate not to have that situation, but at the summit, when you showed the video of the pro-abortion protesters that took off their shirts and their bodies were all painted and hands off my body and all this, you know, this obviously is not a group that you're going to be able to sit down and be empathetic and talk to. They have a, you know, they have a set plan. They're determined to disrupt, and I'm guessing that that's maybe the majority of disruptors, not somebody that's just having a bad day, but the people that are actually have this all planned out to disrupt. And I'd like to see, you know, more advice on how to deal with that situation.
Yeah, that one, there's people who come to the church to be disruptive. And I think I talked about there's a church in the western suburbs this happened to about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. The anti-abortion protesters showed up. They were wearing GoPro cameras and body cameras. They were attempting to antagonize the parishioners as they were coming and going, and they were recording it. And as the parishioners responded, hey, you can't be on our property doing this, you can't do this, you can't do that. Then they antagonized them more by saying, look at these Christians, look how they treat us, look what happened, look. And they took that video and embedded it in that church's website, and it took them months to get it off their website. So you want to make sure as you're talking to your teams, if you see people and they're purposely being antagonistic, that's when you step back, get the security team involved, get first responders involved. You don't want to aggressively approach them because they are looking for a response. So yeah, Gary, there's unfortunately a lot of crazy in terms of what people are attempting to do. But it's also I've seen the person who's come to church looking for assistance. Like, I'm in between jobs and I'm experiencing some homelessness and I need some assistance. Well, that's a Monday through Friday kind of function. Typically, it's not a Sunday morning when you're having worship function. And this guy just could not accept that the church was not going to help him right now in this moment in the middle of church. And they kept saying, this is an office function. You need to come in and sit down and talk with somebody. And it got worse and worse and worse and worse, like very quickly. So there are things that happen on Sunday mornings that didn't come there intentionally to disrupt. He really was looking for some help, but he thought that the help was going to be kind of instant, like somebody was going to give him money in the moment. And so then they had to like de-escalate him. And I think they did like figure out how to get him some gift cards for the day and get him back the next Monday for some help and stuff. But yeah, it went really bad, really fast, really fast.
So we have on our church an on-call minister.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone comes in on the street that's homeless, whatever they need, that person is called out of service to come and address that issue.
Mhm.
It's not a security situation. So we have an on-call minister that comes and prays with that person, offers them whatever they need, figure out what to send them to, shelters, what they're going to have needs that day. Yes. Because money may not be in time for them. So yeah.
Yeah, we have on-call pastoral staff, but what
Yes.
they were looking for was an immediate, and that, somebody wasn't addressing their need quickly enough, even though they had gone to get the on-call pastor. They were given some resources about what they could and couldn't do. I mean, they could do something, but they're limited on Sunday, like what they could do. But anyway, yeah. So we've seen it happen quickly. Anybody else ever have anything they needed to de-escalate?
We actually last year we had a young man who came on our Sunday service, and in the summer we have the patio open, and there's a monitor out there and people can watch service on the patio. And he started to approach women and would sit down and start talking to them about not eating meat. It's in the Bible. And, so they had to talk with him. They said, you can come back, you just can't do this. And the next week he did it again. And they talked with him for a while, found out that he was divorced. His daughter doesn't talk to him. He changed his name. We found out he sued the state of Indiana because he didn't like the names of the week. So there was some mental illness. They allowed him to come back. It took 4 times for this man to be asked to leave our campus, because this time he had accosted a woman during service. She brought him into the building to talk to him. She was shaking. And when one of our pastors went up to her, she literally said, I am fighting for the gospel right now against this gentleman. I mean, it was to the point where she was afraid. And so we had a discussion and we said, he should never have been, number one, allowed in the building. And number 2, it should have never gotten to a 4-week point.
Right.
I said, this man was giving off, yes, he is showing some issues of mental illness. And why wasn't he directed to that ministry? Because we have mental health alliance ministry. So that was the learning opportunity that we had as a volunteer team. And we're talking, the greeters, the ushers, the parking lot attendants, because it started in the parking lot.
Yeah, it's really important to have the people, particularly in the lobby. Parking lot may be a little difficult for them to stand and have those discussions, but for the people who are in the lobby to know what those resources are. Like, did they know that team existed? Did they know to send them to that?
Right, yeah.
Ministries oftentimes are very siloed. This is my ministry. This is my ministry. This is my. But we got to all be connected across the church. Like, could you have gotten them to somebody? Could you have gotten them to somebody faster? All right, so thanks for being here. See you next time.
Thank you.
So then what we found out was the gentleman had then moved to California and created this beautiful Christian video.
Yeah.
Like he created this, he recorded this Christian song. It's, I think, on iTunes now. And we were, we're like, okay. Yeah, I mean, that shows you the kind of the yo-yo effect.
Yeah, it sounds like some mental illness. I mean, that's a whole different piece. Nick's not on here. He did a whole mental health segment for us. We're going to take that a step deeper at our next one. But I mean, people who are, my son has mental illness. So when he's medicated, he's great. When he's not so much, right? So there's big gaps between they're fully like on and life is great and it's not medication, right? So we love them any less. We just try to get them to the resources.
Right. And a lot of times when you're dealing with somebody who's in an escalation phase, sometimes they'll let you know that they're off their meds.
Yeah, sometimes they will tell you.
Yeah.
And statistics actually show that mentally ill people are not necessarily always violent.
No.
They're acting erratic to us, but the percentage of them that are violent is actually pretty low. Yeah. All right, we're gonna jump over to the actual verbal judo. They talk about some tips. It's a short video. It's about 4 minutes, and then we'll come back and talk about that one. Hold on, let me see if I can figure out how to share again. You guys see my screen?
Yes.
I see it.
Judo is a book by George Thompson about how you can avoid arguments and still get what you want by the use of soft skills. Thompson, who has black belts in Taekwondo, Karate, and Judo, shares his methods for resolving conflicts without getting into an argument or raising your voice. Persuasion is a lost art. People nowadays resort to force and shouting to get what they want, which tends to turn into problems. Employees who fail to please their customers might lose their jobs. Police officers who make too many requests too often will probably have complaints filed against them. The good news, though, is that most conflicts can be diffused with effective communication techniques. Judo is a martial art where one redirects an opponent's energy and minimizes violence. Similarly, in the world of communication, there's a technique called verbal judo that is derived from empathy. Here are the top 7 lessons from George Thompson's book, Verbal Judo. Lesson 1, learn the importance of communication. Have you ever considered communication as an art form? A majority of us haven't, and Thompson observed that this is often where the problem starts. Because talking is something almost all of us do all the time, most of us assume that we're already gifted communicators. But as Thompson learned on his first day as a rookie cop, talking and communication are 2 very different things. And if you're relying on your communication skills to keep you safe in a high-risk situation, effective communication could mean the difference between life and death. So how can you make yourself an effective communicator? Well, the first step to that is changing your mindset. Lesson 2, recognize the difference between talking and communicating. If you've ever taken the brunt of someone's bad mood or snapped at someone in anger, you can already imagine that in each case, a person likely has been using words to communicate something, but weren't practicing good communication skills. One of the key differences between proper communication and talking is their intent. If you're just talking to someone, you might say whatever is on your mind at that time, whether it's the right thing to say or something inappropriate. For example, you might yell words like, "Are you an idiot? Stop that, and come here." Likewise, you might also use some common but not really helpful phrases, such as "rules are rules. You wouldn't understand anyway, because I said so, and never mind." As you can see from simply reading these phrases, you can tell that each of them have a hostile, negative, or accusatory tone. You probably have also noticed that they're all shut-down statements. This means that they hinder a free information. Rather than simply conveying your thoughts and inviting the other party to engage with what you've said, each of those phrases are provocative and commanding. It might help if you treat them as sit down and shut up phrases. This means that they're the antagonist of good communication, and in direct contrast to the principle of verbal judo. Lesson 3, master the art of verbal judo. Verbal judo is about the gentle manner when explaining things. For example, let's use some of the phrases we mentioned in the previous lesson. Imagine that you told your teenage kid, "No, you can't go with your friends to a house party on a school night." When they ask why or argue that they should be allowed to go, you might go for a reply like, "Because I said so," "Because rules are rules," or "Never mind, you wouldn't understand." But these responses are examples of poor communication skills and are unhelpful. Lesson 4, practice verbal judo. So instead, try practicing verbal judo by taking an extra time to connect with your child and explain the problem. Rather than saying, "Because I said so," you could explain, "Because I don't think it's safe for you to be in a party where there's no adult supervision and likely has underage drinking involved. And even if the party is completely safe, I think it's unwise for you to stay out late on a school night because you'd feel tired and grumpy the next day at school. I believe your health and school are very important, and if you don't get enough sleep, it will affect both your grades and your physical and mental health. It might take a little more emotional involvement at time, but it offers a variety of benefits in return. Lesson 5, avoid making people feel disrespected. When people feel disrespected, resentment and tension builds up. So when you reply with a shutdown statement, you probably don't intend to foster anger and ill will, and probably just trying to end the conversation quickly. But it's highly likely that they'll walk away from the conversation feeling upset and disrespected. Lesson 6, put yourself in someone else's shoes. A lot of us would like to think that we're kind and empathetic beings, and for the most part we are. However, in tense situations, it becomes too easy to become myopic. Our empathy decreases when we lose sight of alternative viewpoints and increases our hostility. Because rather than considering the situation from someone else's point of view, we get frustrated because they refuse to think like us. It doesn't come as a surprise that this increases the tension in our relationships and leaves everyone feeling uncomfortable. Lesson 7. Be empathetic. Empathy is the act of putting yourself in someone else's shoes, to imagine how it feels to be in their position, or an attempt to see the situation from someone else's point of view. Basically, empathy is the absence of conflict and selfishness, because when you're trying to be empathetic, you're not worried about whether or not you like them or whether the other person agrees with you. You're simply trying to understand and connect with them. In conclusion, verbal judo involves looking at the world through someone else's perspective, which helps us find common ground and makes it easier to communicate with them. The best way to convince people to follow orders voluntarily is by helping them see how it benefits them in the long run if they comply. With careful words and patience, you can educate people about how they themselves can make better decisions. Are you a skilled communicator? Let us know in the comments section. Thank you for listening. Please don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on my new content.
All right. Anything stick out for that one? That's the actual verbal judo 7 steps.
Well, be empathetic was on the 9 de-escalation skills. So that was kind of interesting.
And in our words, kind of someone said earlier, just make sure we're extending grace always, right? The one that sticks out to me is looking at the world through someone else's viewpoint, which I think is hard for human beings. It doesn't matter who you are. It's difficult to sometimes put yourself in somebody else's shoes and see it from their vantage point, right? But that one's a really big one because sometimes we think, and particularly as church, again, who am I? Daughter of a pastor, daughter-in-law of a pastor, church my whole life. Sometimes we can get mired in our own terminologies, in our own thinking, and the person coming may or may not have gone to church for years, may or may not even know the terminology that we are espousing. Like, just be human with them in that moment. Just be human with them, not necessarily attempting to be churchy, if that's a thing, right? Because sometimes they just need somebody to connect with. But we can not necessarily always see it through someone's eyes. We're so busy trying to give them what we have as opposed to listening to what they got. So I think I talked earlier about being a business owner. I've gone to these trade shows and I watch people as they walk up to the booths, all these corporations there, and they sell a widget. And what do they want to do? They want to sell a widget, right? So they walk up to the booth and they start selling. And that company doesn't even buy that widget, right? And so we have to be careful not to try to cram into people what we want them to have. And so put ourselves in the position to listen to what it is they actually need, are asking for, or to Angelo's point earlier, they need that they don't even know they need, right? But just being in tune and kind of listening for that. Anything else stick out to anybody else?
I liked the number 2, recognize the difference between talking and communication.
Yes.
Sometimes, yeah, I think talking is with our mouth, but communication is with our entire body, our mind. We have to communicate with our spirit, our soul.
Anybody know what percentage of communication is verbal?
What is it, like 5?
Close. Connie's got her fingers up. 7%.
Ooh, 7. Ooh, that's a good 7%.
Of communication is verbal. And we like to talk, right? That means 93% of communication is nonverbal.
Wow. I only know that because I'm a retired teacher. No matter how much I talked all day, they only got 7% of it.
Mm-hmm.
So 93% of communication is nonverbal, right? It's tone, it's inflection, it's body language, it's eye contact. It's all those things before you get to just talking.
Mm-hmm.
So we just need to be aware of that. So talking versus communication. They talked about one word or one statement they said in there was rules are rules. And every church has got its own rules. Every organization has its own rules. But I like to adopt the philosophy of relationships over rules. If you can make it happen for somebody, let's assume the church is having a concert and this person's like, all in a tizzy about sitting in a particular. Can you make it happen? Is there a rule about somebody sitting there? Maybe, but can you make it happen for the person? Relationships over,
Mm-hmm.
particularly if they're escalated. You know what? Let me see. Typically, we don't let somebody sit there. That's kind of a rule, but let me see what I can do, right? Relationships over rules. Anything else stick out to anybody else?
I think for me, I realize I'm a type A personality. And because I am, I have to be very careful and make sure I'm not judgmental. Everybody won't think like me or be like me. And it's okay that they're not. That's the good part about the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a tough one for all of us. Humans. You got this human thing going on.
And I did like number one, the importance of communication, which is changing your mindset. I know sometimes I have the tendency to listen to respond. And I think I need to change the mindset to listen to learn. What am I learning about the person that's coming to me with an issue or,
Yeah, and
or they,
oftentimes we're set on autopilot. I mean, we come in and we're going to set up and then we got to do this and then we got to have our huddle and then we're going to go. Like sometimes we're just set on autopilot. And the service itself is set to a time and then the choir's going to sing and the worship team's going to do this and then the pastor's going to do that. Like we're on autopilot. And I think in that autopilot, we miss people. We miss people. So if you can stop, think about what that person's feeling, going through, have the conversation, listen to understand, listen to learn, not listen to judge or listen to respond is a big part of de-escalation. Because if they say something, and don't forget, I'm gonna say it one more time, we're all human. So we're all coming with our own set of human baggage, right? So if they say a word that triggers you, then you automatically think you know what they're gonna say next, and you've hopped into something that wasn't even what they were asking for, right? So yeah, we have to also manage our own stuff.
And Angelia, that goes along with what you mentioned it briefly, but it's so important is that we get so programmed in doing our in doing our church work, if you will, that we respond with what we have instead of what they need. And I think if we use that empathy and we take that time and we truly look at the person, what do they need? Because in my bag of tricks, I may not have what they need. But the question is, can I help them find it?
And here's the reality, Connie. My church might not have what they need.
Correct. But that doesn't mean I can't direct them someplace else that might have what they need.
Correct. We don't have that particular service here, sir, but I know a church that does do that. I know a church that does have a 12-step program. I know a church that does work with people who are going through substance abuse. We don't have a class for that right now, right?
Right.
But people are so like, come to my church, come and do this. We may not have what they need.
Right.
So get out of our own head and help the person figure out what it is they need and how can we help them get it, right? And get them handed off to somebody who can help them more. Anything else stick out?
Yeah, that was interesting. You mentioned about, rules are rules. We live, our church is next to a forest preserve with a lot of passerbyers, bicyclists, and we've kind of have a rule that no one, if they're not in the church, they really shouldn't be using the restrooms. And then just about a month ago, real nice couple came in and kind of almost begged us, really, we have to use. And I said, all right, come on in, And so while the wife went to the restroom, we started talking with the guy, and he was a professor of theology. in California, and so they were from out of town, but they had relatives in the neighborhood, and so they wanted to know more about our church to talk to their relatives about them and about the church. So, yeah, I think you have to assess the situation and really react, instead of just, hey, it's a rule, you can't come in.
Yeah. And on a case by case basis, right? Yeah. Very good. Anything stick out to anybody else? Yes, no, maybe. So we'll talk about verbal judo more throughout the year. We'll keep talking about de-escalation tips and techniques. We'll talk about OAA again, the Observe, Assess, Act model. It's on the website, and I think there's a video about it, so you can go take a look at that. Anybody have any other questions? Anybody need any other help to get started on their framework? When we come back next month, I want to know that you guys are working on this binder. It's not to be cute. Like, it's not to put on this shelf and go, oh, that was nice. That was a nice little conference. It's like, you got to use it. I need you to fill it out. I need you to know who owns it in your organization. I need to know who owns the process of reunification. Have you identified your mutual aid partners? Who owns that? Have you met with your security teams to say, hey, here's how we want to work hand in hand with you. Here's how we want to be your eyes and ears. Here's how we want to communicate with you.
Yeah, I'm on the security team at my church, and our kids ministry actually have their own security team.
Yeah.
But they're not called security.
Right.
They're known as like a color team, whatever color they choose. So when you hear, like the red team, that's to let their security know.
Okay.
That something's up. In the event that they need more backup, then they'll call. We don't call ourselves security, we call ourselves safety, because we don't want to scare people to think, oh my gosh, our church needs security. Why does our church need security? What's going on that our church needs security? I mean, we do have a police officer at every service. He's not in full uniform. He's more in a casual look, but he still has his gear on. But they know that he's there because of that shooting in Texas that occurred. And other churches that have had violence, hit their home. And so we have that separate security for our kids ministry, and then for our regular ministries.
And are you guys you work together as a team? Are you also working with the greeters, ushers, parking lot folks?
We do. Actually, we have, I'm a coach, so I'm a security, safety, and medical coach. So our coaches are cross training.
Okay, good.
Just so that we know their areas in the event, that something were to happen within their, that volunteer team.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Like I said, churches typically work in silos. I'm in the medical ministry. I'm in the usher or greeter ministry. I'm in the parking lot ministry. But the more we take the walls down and say, hey, this is how we're going to work across these ministries for maximum effectiveness and bandwidth, right? We got more people who know what a threat looks like and can call it out. So, yeah.
Yeah, and our some of our ministries, our volunteer ministries, have to be background checked.
Yes. Yeah, that's a big one. I hope everybody's doing that. I think I shared at the conference. We had an event once, and we were opening a new campus, and it was a 2-day event. So the guy shows up on Saturday, and everybody's like, "Oh, he's so great! He wants to join the church." We're always so excited for a new soul, right? So he wants to join church. He's gonna be part of us, blah blah. And everybody's like, "Okay, great." So he shows up Sunday morning, super early, like 6:30 in the morning, and there's women in the kitchen alone, and they are getting ready for the day, and everybody's excited that this guy's back. And they gave him we had t-shirts for the day, like for the event, and they gave him a volunteer t-shirt and said, great, you can volunteer with us. sent him on his way. He didn't do anything wrong. He went out and set up chairs. He was a great guy. He really wanted to be, but we didn't know that. So when I got there, I went, you gave him a shirt. Nobody can tell me what he looks like. He blended in with the rest of the volunteers. That's a recipe for a disaster. So before you're onboarding volunteers, make sure you've done some kind of a background check. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, do other
If you're
not
working with kids.
do your other churches, for the people that are on the meeting, do you guys have tier levels?
What do you mean when you say that?
So at my church, I'm a tier 3. So I had to do the background check. Then they sent me a link to take all these like online webinars, like through the Department of Homeland Security. One of them was about, child molestation within the church, because there are pastor predators and so
And the reporter, right?
exactly right. And so like tier 3 is the highest. So you go through all these webinars and you have to take quizzes, and then you get like certificates that you turn into the church. So I don't know if other churches have that.
I know we do it if you are in the children's ministry at the highest level.
Okay.
There's a reporter in there and some other things that you have to focus in on. I don't think that they do at that level for like somebody who's standing at the front door, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Or I know with like your VBS, anyone who works with VBS is background checked, and yeah.
Yes. Anybody else have anything to share, ask? We're almost at our time.
Has anyone ever had to de-escalate a situation, and how did that go? And what was the outcome?
Yeah, that's what I was asking earlier. I don't think anybody had a in the moment example. No. That's a good thing. But we still want to be prepared, right?
It is. And I also think too that transparency is key. Like if it does happen, is it shared with the other ministries, other volunteer ministries? Like, oh, we had this situation happen, while we were ushering someone. Is it shared with all the other ministries?
How would you share
it? You could share it in a huddle. And just kind of, I know, we did have, we share things in huddle.
Yeah, you're leaving me. All right, have a good night.
Yeah, I know we share things in huddle. Things are shared in huddle. You don't want it to, get throughout the entire church because you don't want to cause panic.
Yeah, so one of the things we talked about at the event was a app called Slack. SLACK, and you can put different channels on Slack. It's a free app, I think. And so there's a security channel, there's a crisis management channel. So when you look at that incident command structure that I gave you guys, that can be in the crisis management piece. Channel, there is a channel for ushers, greeters, parking lot people, blah, blah, blah. That's where you share kind of across the, hey, here's something that we just experienced, you could be on the lookout for. The one we talked about was one around domestic situations where a woman had paperwork that her husband was not supposed to be at church at the same time as her and her kids. That information needs to go in Slack. So if the parking lot person saw Sally get out the car and then she saw Joe get out the car, they know they're not supposed to be there at the same time. So that's a radio call to the front door to go, hey, we know Joe's not supposed to be here when Sally and the kids are here. Can somebody just, have a conversation with him when he gets to the door? He's walking up from door D, E, A, B, C, right?
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we did have a situation where we had a parent list a child's allergy as someone's name.
I don't know what you mean.
So it was a domestic situation. The mom didn't really want a whole lot of people to know that there was this domestic situation going on because there were children involved. But what she put was, as the child's allergy, she put the perpetrator's name.
Oh, yeah, that's not helpful.
It's not helpful, but it was to, when someone goes, how can somebody be allergic to somebody? And I said, that is a domestic situation.
Yeah, she was trying to code it, but that's not helpful because unless you knew that, right? Then you
Right.
can't, that parking lot person isn't gonna know that.
Right, yeah.
So yes, that's an internal conversation then with whoever like is your ERP person or whoever is your person that's doing some of the background check stuff to say, hey, here is an issue and we need to put this somewhere where the parking lot people can see it and we need to tell them. I gave an example at the event that I had met with the pastor who had a domestic and both families went to the same church, the wife and her whole family and the husband and his whole family, and they had kids. And so seeing them all at church was no big deal, except she had been telling them that there was a domestic situation. And it was like, but they saw her and they saw him and they saw the kids and his mom and her mom and everybody's at church. And this one Sunday, he shows up at church, waits for service to be over, walks outside, shoots her in front of the kids, and turns the gun on himself. So domestic situations are very big. And if you know, you have to let everybody else know who has the potential to see that there could be a problem, particularly parking lot and front door. So you want to deal with that before it's in your worship center. And that goes back to mandated reporter. If you know, you cannot not know. All right, good people. I got nothing else. If you don't have anything else, I'm gonna call it a night.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna say a prayer for us. Thank you guys for being here. Father, in the name of Jesus, I just want to say thank you for the ability to be able to equip your bride. And I want to thank you for all the folks here who are representing churches from all over, who are looking to make sure that we are keeping these topics top of mind for our teams and our staffs and our volunteers for the purpose of protection. Not in a way to be scary or to make people nervous, but to normalize the conversation for the protection of our congregations. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 All right, good people. I hope to see you next month. And I hope that you're pretty far along on your binders by the time
Have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you have questions and don't see anything you're looking for, just email us. We'll get it to you.
Okay.
Great.
All right,
Thank you, Angela. Appreciate it.
All
Thanks so much.
Good night. God bless.
God
Night.
bless.
All right, bye-bye. Denise and Connie.
Oops, I'm still there.
Did you stop the recording, Angelia?